Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training. Now, before I get into the subject matter of the video, which is the light on this handgun, and yes, the extended review on the handgun is coming, I'm going to get into this because we have a short list of courses that are available as far as just the ability to sign up for them are concerned, and they're in some places that people have requested of me quite a bit, actually. And I'm also getting ready to add a whole bunch of other stuff to the course curriculum, like I just added Georgia and whatnot. So let's go through that. Pistol 1 and 2 in Winnemucca, Nevada. That would be April 18th and 19th for Pistol 1, and April 20th and 21, 18 and 19 for Pistol 1, and 20 and 21 for Pistol 2. And again, it's in Winnemucca, Nevada. So you guys way out west that have been beating me over the head to come out there, I'm coming out there. Also, those of you that enjoyed us in Montana the last time that we were there, or those of you that have asked me about it before, we are running out to Helena, Montana for Rifle 1 and 2, Rifle 1 in May 2 through 3, and Rifle 2 in May 4 through 5, so that's back to back. Following that, there actually isn't all that much more because, obviously I have to add courses here. But we have another 2-day vehicle class coming up in Adairville, Kentucky. That is May 23 and 24. And we're also going back to Eastman, Georgia for Pistol 1 and 2. That would be August 1 and 2 for Pistol 1 and August 3 and 4 for Pistol 2. So it'd be Eastman, Georgia. We're going back there. We actually had a pretty big turnout last time, so we're aiming to go back. I'm also getting ready to add a bunch of other stuff to the list. So there it is. Also, as far as the reviews and that kind of stuff are concerned, there's a lot of longevity stuff coming. So I'm going to get to it, and then I'm going to start talking about some other stuff at the end. Now, this handgun light, okay, from Streamlight. I've had this guy for about 4 years, right? I've had this guy for about 4 years. I have more than one, but I've had this guy for 4 years, and just about every handgun that you guys have seen that had a light bolted to it had this light attached to it. Now, the kind of wild thing about it is, as you can obviously see, this thing's been mounted to quite a few handguns. It's been in quite a few holsters. It's been drawn from a holster quite a few times. In addition to that, it's been mounted on rifles and shotguns and all this other stuff, but principally speaking, it was attached to a handgun for the majority of its life. Now, what can I say about it other than the damn thing still works? It's been dropped quite a bit. You guys saw up-close photos of it. There's all kinds of scratches and dents and all kinds of wild shit going on with this particular handgun light, and it still outputs its proper number of lumens. It still floods well. It's not meant to be like a concentrated beam style light, like a Surefire X300 Ultra is, but it still has a fairly hot beam, hot enough for me to see well, and it floods well enough for me to see an area around my target area very, very well. And really, what can I honestly say about it other than that? It has run extremely well. I've had no technical issues with this thing before. Now, I'm not going to be ignorant and say that I've never heard of mechanical issues from Streamlight TLR1s before. That would just be stupid. But at the same time, people find mechanical issues here and there with all kinds of things. For instance, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a front sight come off or come loose of a Glock 19 or shear its rear sight or just some goofy crap that has happened. But because I see bojillions of them, I'm not going to say that that's a bad handgun, because machines and whatnot and electronic equipment get made on Monday too, you know what I mean? But just like the Glock series of anything, this handgun light I've seen in overwhelming numbers. And to me, finding one that doesn't work is about as rare as finding a Glock that really doesn't work, right? So That's very, very nice. And the cool thing about it too is that it is, in fact, quite a bit cheaper than an X300 Ultra. Now, depending on deals that you can get and that kind of thing, how expensive the X300, which really is like the competitor to this, you can get the price to drop significantly, but typically speaking, this is significantly easier to get monetarily speaking. Now, far as controls and stuff go, this guy has, the standard, I'm guessing they're butterfly-like controls as far as just how it handles. The thing that I found is that you have opinions on one side or the other, because these compete directly with X300s. So you have guys that have pros and cons or individual preferences over the other. Now, the first thing that a lot of people complain about or praise about the controls on this particular light is that the controls themselves are pretty easy to use. Now, there are a lot of right-handed guys that will simply press it on and they'll leave it on, and it's actually pretty easy to get the light to turn on. Now, there are some guys that really, really do not like that. There are some guys with either really aggressive grip styles or aggressive draw styles that'll ND the light, and they personally don't like that. I personally understand that gripe, and it's a legitimate one. Me personally, I'm more of a finesse controls person. If I have to throw in a lot of pressure into making certain things happen with most of the gun stuff that I use, whether it be flashlights or bolt locks and releases or whatever, right? I'm usually not that big of a fan, barring a couple of things. Like, for instance, I like stiffer magazine releases and that kind of stuff. This is all personal preference kind of deal. But me personally, I prefer the controls over the X300. What is a legitimate con about this particular handgun light is that, and you'll notice that I have cleaned this lens quite a bit before, but over time it starts getting harder and harder to get it to not cloud, although it still works very well, and I can still pick up things in the background and that kind of deal. It's actually kind of funny because there's a little bit of gray introduced onto the lens, which is glass, not an acrylic, which makes it easier to crack and shatter and that kind of stuff. And I'll get back to that. Now, this being an 800 lumen light, because this is the TLR1 HL, even with the little bit of clouding up front and that kind of stuff, it looks kind of like an incandescent light, kind of like the light from my kitchen table light here. It looks kind of like that, especially when you compare it to a brand new one. I try to keep up after it, but at a certain point, there's a point of no return on the lenses. And also, I used to just straight up clean my lenses improperly. So that's just a whole new thing. Point is, though, even though it's a little clouded, it still gets its job done. Now, as far as the lens is concerned, it's made out of glass and not an acrylic, and that does kind of suck. I've seen before where guys will go to holster up a pistol, they'll go in faster than they should, and for instance, it's on like a Ragnarok or something. They'd catch an edge on that holster and crack the light, and you'd hear like this horrifying crushing sound, right? And of course, now the glass is broken, and that sucks. That's something that is worthy to consider. And those of you that find that an immediate dropping point as far as whether or not you want to pick up this individual light, I got you entirely, especially if it's going on a rifle, because there's a lot of guys with like AR pistols that are real short, especially like 300 blackout style AR pistols. They do not like that at all about it. And if you plan on putting this on like a rifle or a pistol caliber carbine or a submachine gun or whatever, I would straight up not, because that shoulder fired counterpart is exposed to a lot of exterior things. There's a straight up just living with it. You're going to clank it off of stuff and drag it across things and just living with it. A good stern drop on the light itself or on the lens housing itself will straight up crack that glass. I've done it before. on a different light. Josh has done it just trying to holster up super fast because he was mad at himself. It's happened, right? But if we're talking about a concealed carry handgun and that kind of thing, that's where I approach it slightly different. No matter how you slice it, a concealed handgun is straight up way more babied, or even a duty handgun is far more babied than anything mounted to a rifle, because it's constantly carried around in a holster and shielded from outside elements quite a bit, right? So as far as that's concerned, that's much less of a worry if it's going on a handgun. I straight up wouldn't put it on some sort of long gun that you're going to carry around in a sling and move about with and or live with. It would not be my first choice. It wouldn't be my third choice. So yeah, I thoroughly understand the difference. Couple other things too. This thing is fatter a little bit than an X300, but it's a little bit shorter. So depending on personal preferences and that kind of stuff, because of course, if you're carrying this thing around in a holster, that holster obviously has to house the light. And it usually grabs onto the light for tension. And having the light be a little bit fatter could be a problem for you. Having the light be a little bit shorter could be a good thing for you. You see what I'm saying? So you really have to evaluate what your preferences are going to be before you just straight up, see the price tag difference and be all like, I'm going to get that. It's cheaper than an X300. And here's the other thing too, right? These lights are programmable. And the really silly thing about these lights is that when they ship from Streamlight to whoever is distributing them, it arrives to you in the box with this really, really, really gay strobe function on it. And what it really turns into is if you were to turn on the light and then quickly turn it off and then turn it back on again, so basically something like that, it would activate that strobe feature, and that's really stupid, right? Luckily, these lights are programmable, and all it is really is the 10 touch method, and the thing you'll see it go through its little phases. And I'll just go ahead and do it to where right now it's on high only. So I'll just go ahead and mess with it to where, it's 10 quick taps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold. Okay. And it's set to strobe now. So if I tap it, it's got that stupid strobe function in it. But if I go back into it and do it again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, hold. Then it shuts off on its own. Release it, and now that stupid strobe function is gone. So if that was a deal breaker for you before, and you really liked everything else about it, understand that it's programmable and you can take that stupid ass strobe function out of it, because yeah, absolutely, gayer than AIDS is a strobe function, especially if you as the individual are trying to have light discipline on the handgun and then suddenly it does this stupid strobe thing. So I totally get it. But overall performance, the thing has been absolutely fantastic. I had somebody comment on in the comment section of the YouTubes and whatnot that this thing qualifies for its own friggin' veterans discount because of just how used it is. And what's, it was funny to sit there and laugh at, but then we start thinking, this is probably like the Streamlight product that I would really, really get behind. Like I've made preemptive recommendations for different lights and that kind of stuff before that kind of bit me in the ass. Like the ProTac weapon mounted light, you'll notice I haven't done a review on that because we started to see some funky shit happening with them. And then over time, we start to notice more funky shit happening with them. And over time, we figure out that the ProTac series of gun-mounted lights tends to kind of do whatever the fuck it wants to after like a year and a half of training with it a lot, or just being on board a gun that shot a lot. You start having terminal issues, and it's worse than like the old Scouts. Worse in that sometimes it'll just decide when it's going to work or not. And you constantly have to keep up with the tail caps on them because they loosen up really easy. It's sort of a pain in the ass of a light to do, or to deal with. So now we're back to the Mini Scout for those of you that are looking for a light that size. Or if you're looking for the longer version, we're back to a regular ass Scout or a modern Scout, right? So, and then we look at the baby lights that are supposed to go on handguns, and those fucking die on a regular in our courses. And realistically speaking, as far as the overall round count on a 2-day course, the night portion is not all that much. You're not demanding 10 hours of performance out of your light, of it constantly being turned on and off and that kind of stuff. And in that comparatively much shorter time frame, they still would constantly ND coming out of holsters, good quality holsters, because the controls on them are stupid. Or they would have terminal issues to where they won't turn off when you want them to, or they won't turn on when you want them to. It's weird. So as far as a light that I would definitely refer people to right away, because I've just seen so many of them do so good for so long, the Streamlight TLR1 is definitely one of those lights. As far as a handgun light is concerned, or a handgun size light on a handgun, it's my preferred, mainly because of the controls and the flooding element in its lens. Although I'll back up immediately and say I absolutely understand the preferences that guys will have for like the X300 Ultra, because it's more concentrated, it'll fight through more bullshit, especially clouding of the lens. It's very good at fighting through that. And for guys that like stiffer controls on their lights, that's where you should go if that's your preference. You see what I'm saying? So far as handgun lights are concerned, I personally like it on like a carry handgun or a duty pistol. Guys are going to disagree with me, that's all right. And guys are going to have different perspective than me, and that's okay too. But me personally, I've seen far more TLR1 HLs come through in and out of classes over the last decade, never mind the last like friggin' 3 years that my company's been, up and running and that kind of stuff. They wear, and by the way, as far as battery life is concerned, they're very gracious with how they deal with batteries, because they'll slowly over time start to get less bright versus just shutting off or getting dramatically less bright very quickly. So pretty much everything that has to do with this light is very forgiving. And as a note, by the way, the lights themselves, you can interchange how it gets mounted up. For instance, this has a 1913 block in it. You can actually change that out and change it out to like a Glock 1, for instance, so that it better fits the rail that you're attaching that particular light to. So there's that as well. But all of that being said, it's been a very good, very useful light, and I'm happy to have had it for this long because I have no real issues with it, right? Now, for those of you that want to train with us, you absolutely can. Link for everything I'm about to describe is in the description below. Our website is up. We're getting ready to add more stuff to the schedule, which is going to be great. Also, over time, you're going to notice other things, like more of these reviews are coming out because, long-term stuff is what it is. If you want to support us through Patreon, that's absolutely great. We do our best to, fund troop training and that kind of stuff. We'll bring them in. None of their dime gets spent, and they get trained up. For those of you that want to take advantage of still a great deal as far as training and that kind of stuff is concerned, I just increased the pricing for our $35 a month program. It is now a $41 a month program, and I'm shutting down a $35 a month program fairly shortly. So those of you that are currently signed up to that, you're going to have to go ahead and migrate over per the video that I shot yesterday. Also, prices on our 2-day courses are, the full price is going up to $300, over $250. Again, we know our value, and I need to get ahead of economics before economics bite me. That's just how it has to go. And in all honesty, I would like to make a little bit of money now because I understand what we're worth. So that is what it is. Other than that, if you want to check us out on Facebook, you absolutely can. Link for that's in the description below, absolutely. If you want to buy a hat from us, link in the description for that. And remember, guys, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.